welcome to Kirsty Reads and my November wrap-up. I really wanted to get my tree in the background because we are a household to put up our tree early. We put it up just because it had been a year and we needed a little bit of joy. So we have the tree. I'm not ashamed. In November I got through 17 books, which I don't want to drop them. I have this many of physical books. One is missing from that pile because I posted it off to a friend so that she could read it and love it. Didn't feel like I had read that much in November, but it just turns out I'm terrible at keeping track of how many books I've read. My 17 for November brings me up to 179 books for the year. I completely accept that that is a ridiculous amount of books for a person to have read in 1 year. I am a really quick reader, but also I don't have that many hobbies at the moment. I mainly just read and craft. I read 10 physical books, 4 ebooks and 3 audiobooks. I gave 5 5-stars and 5 4-stars, and then just 3 3s, 3 2s and 1 1 that we will never talk about again. And that gives an average rating of 3.6 for this month. I had 5 5-star reads this month, which were The Cat Who Saved Books. And this book was all about a young boy who lived with his grandfather who had passed away, and his grandfather owned and ran a bookshop. And the young boy, he meets a cat who needs his help on some quests to save books. While it was just a lovely story about a cat and a wee boy saving books, this book kind of felt like a love letter to literature. The book really was about how it doesn't matter what you read or how much you read, it just matters that you enjoy what you're reading and that you get something out of it. I thought that was just beautiful. The book was so short, it was only 117 pages, but in that time there was so much character growth and I just absolutely loved it. Obviously I loved the cat. I think it goes without saying that I was a huge fan of the cat, who was sassy and grumpy. I also felt that this book covered grief really well. The young boy was grieving for his grandfather and he was sort of coping with that through the cat and with his quests to save the books. He also made some new friends along the way. It was just a really sweet, short but lovely and heartwarming read, just what I needed. My next 5-star read was Cricket House, which is one of my favourite Agatha Christie books. It's definitely one of my top 5 favourite Agatha Christie books. A very wealthy elderly man has been killed. Originally it wasn't thought to have been murder because he was older and he had some health issues, but then it's discovered that he was killed and investigations proceed. This book had everything I want from a murder mystery. I want an old house, I want a dysfunctional family. Ideally I would like an unpleasant victim, but he didn't seem that unpleasant compared to what we're used to. There were twists and turns all throughout this book. This book is so full of red herrings and twists and turns, and it's so good. It's such a fast-paced book. I've read it so many times before and still I'm hooked right from the beginning when I read it. It's always such an enjoyable read. The twist at the end is just perfection. Despite reading this book before and watching TV adaptations of this book, I still gasp when the end happens because I know it's coming because I've read it, but it's still just such a shock. And I just think it's perfect. It's a perfect example of an amazing Agatha Christie book. It's one of my favourites, and it's always, when I'm asked to recommend an Agatha Christie book, Crooked House is always one of the ones I will recommend because it is a standalone book and you don't need to know anything at all about Agatha Christie books to be able to enjoy it. You just have to buckle yourself in for a wild ride. The next 5-star book that I had was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I originally gave this book 4 stars. I thought it was a 4.5 and I wasn't quite sure, so I rounded down. And I was an idiot because by the end of the next week I was still thinking about this book. So clearly it was a 5-star read and I had to go back and edit Goodreads, which isn't difficult to do. It took no time at all. But I should have listened to my heart and rounded up. I absolutely love this book. It's a beautiful story about love and friendship and growing up, feeling like you don't fit in. The characters in this book dealt with racism and homophobia and feeling like they just didn't fit in because they weren't embracing their heritage as much or as they thought they should be. And I think that the author handled that so well. Obviously, I am a white Scottish woman. I am not the authority on this at all, but I felt like it was handled well. This book was absolutely, it's a theme. Almost all of my 5-star reads were heartwarming, and this book, it was so heartwarming, and I cried so much in this book. There were a few bits that I just felt so attached to the characters. So when things happened, I got really upset on their behalf. I got angry on their behalf. I've never cheered somebody punching somebody else quite as much as in this book. This book was really just sweet. Those kids were really mature. I thought the parents in this book were just lovely. They are just so loving of their children and so supportive. Chapters were so short and it was so consumable. I read it in less than a day and I thought about it for more than a week. So I think that tells me everything I need to know about this book. I'll definitely be reading it again. I just found myself rooting for these 2 kids and I really enjoyed them as characters, and I am so happy to be able to read more about them. I want nothing but the best for Ari and Dante. I think that the revelation of the family secrets were just so well done because they were relevant to goings on at the time of this book. Everything was just so cleverly done. The way that the book was written, everything was linked, and I thought that that was just so impressive. I also read The Grace Keepers by Kirsty Logan, which I discussed a little bit more on my Reading Scottish wrap up for November. So I'll just chat about it for a little bit because I could talk about it for ages. It was another heartwarming story. I love the found family elements with North, who was on that circus boat, and the other people in the circus, they were her family. And the bear. Can't forget the bear. Writing of The Grace Keepers was, again, it was just exquisite. It was beautifully written. I actually listened to the audiobook of The Grace Keepers and I thought that that was the right choice for me. I thought that the writing of that book was just beautiful. I really loved the world building. The whole concept of the world basically being archipelagos and people living on boats and it being a luxury to be able to live on land. It was like a fairy tale. My heart absolutely broke multiple points during this book because the characters were just so lovely and you didn't want anything horrible or anything but good things to happen to them. The book was just, it was lovely. It was all about just found family, friendship, love, and doing what you needed to do to protect that. I've said it before and I will say it again, I am a sucker for any book that has an animal that gets a starring role, and the bear in this book, I like that bear. He was cool. My final 5-star read of November was Duck Feet by Eli Percy, which I do own the physical copy of that book. I have posted it off to a friend I said I would, and I have. I loved Duck Feet. It is one of the best books that I have read definitely this year. I did discuss Duck Feet in my last video, so I don't want to drone on too much, but I love that book, so I probably will drone on. It told the story of Kirsty, who started the book as a 12-year-old kid growing up working class in Scotland, and it takes us through Kirsty's high school experience right up until 6th year, and the book was utterly charming. It was heartwarming, of course. That's what in a 5-star read, I either want heartwarming or murder mystery. Very rarely do I want anything else. The book was all written in Scots language, which I wasn't expecting, despite there being a huge sticker on the front of the book which told me that. I have gone out and bought a few more books in Scots language so that I can continue with that newfound love. I finished Duck Feet probably 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. I've read a lot of books since, and I still can't stop thinking about it. I love that book. It was so nostalgic and it pulled on my heartstrings. So every month I do have what I like to call Callie's book recommendation of the month that nobody asked for. My book of November has to be Duck Feet by Eli Percy. I thought that book was utter perfection. Only one more month of wrap-ups, and then I have to do a whole year wrap-up. Thanks for watching!